Hello ladies and gents, and you join me at St Margaret's Barking, which was once the great Barking Abbey. The only parts of the abbey that remain are this Curfew Tower, the church itself, and the shrines / graves of the saints. But what we're going to have a look at here is a new thing which I wanted to show you. As you can see, someone has stucco. Oh, that's probably the information finger for it. Yeah, this is Barking Abbey as it was. Once great religious institution. Barking Abbey, it may have looked around the year 1500. Barking Abbey was established in AD 666 by the Saxon Bishop Erkenwald through his sister Ethelberga, who became the first abbess. Her successors were highly educated and powerful women who managed the abbey and its manor. For almost a millennium, William the Conqueror stayed here after he was crowned king in 1066, and Edmund Tudor was educated there before his grandson, King Henry VIII, closed the abbey in 1539. It was demolished soon afterwards. Up in the Curfew Tower there is a stone block called the Holy Rood, which is one of the few things as well to come or to survive at the Abbey, and that was buried in the nuns' burial ground, and along with another piece of stone was found in Victorian times and lives up there now, but it's really hard to get into here because they've got death watch beetles and problems with their floors. So yeah, as I say, massive part of the local history this one was. Just don't forget, when this was an abbey it would have been walled and gated, and this being called the Curfew Tower, it had a bell in it, and it rang that bell each night, which told the local townspeople when the curfew began, because you had curfew in those days. Most towns were walled and that, but yeah, let's see the little tiny door to get into it, which is interesting. I shall pause you for a sec and take you to our next location. And here we are, within the ruins of that great abbey. This rounded area here was known as the Lady Chapel, was like a rounded turreted stone tower. But then and now, the most sacred area within the abbey is here. Under this stone is St Ethelberga, for whom the abbey was founded by her brother Erkenwald. Under this one you have St Hildelif, who was another saint of that era. And under this one you have a lady who was an abbess, and she was, I think it was the sister to a king. But also as well, the Geoffrey Chaucer's daughter was a nun here. And this area here is the nuns' burial ground. And excavations were done here in the late 80s, early 90s, and they found lots of, obviously, skeletons. Many generations of nuns were buried here, but they also found interesting objects associated with them, like pins that would have held their habits and wimples and things in place, all sorts of stuff, stained glass. And they also made two interesting discoveries, one of which was the Holy Rood, which is in the Curfew Tower just there, and the other one was a stone block, which is actually the first recorded vicar of St Margaret's. So they obviously thought highly enough of him to hide that when the Reformation men came. So yeah, this is the abbey and the most sacred part within it. And now I'm going to take you over to St Margaret's Church, which is just over there, so join me inside for that. But before we go in, just a couple of views, or some views of the exterior of this lovely church. I have shown this one before, as I say in the video, but I've had new members since then, and there are some changes as well. They've cleaned the stained glass, There's new historical information boards up on the bell ringers, bits and pieces like that. And the churches all be decked out in flowers, which looks lovely. This stone here, which is sadly vandalised, is one of the old church wardens. Here lieth the body of Thomas More, who departed this life April ye 6, 1670, being then church warden of this parish, aged, I think that's 35 years. And you can see the bottom bit's been sprayed and vandalised and all sorts over the years. Yeah, obviously the church meant a lot to him, and to be given a place there right on the church wall, and he's buried under there as well, like in the ground under here, he was obviously well thought of. So yeah, we shall now. This is St Margaret's Centre, which is built really within the last 15-20 years, in our own era, shall we say. It was once part of the churchyard, but the bodies were taken up and moved to Ripple Road Cemetery. This bit of the cemetery, round the back bit, was where most of the poor people ended up anyway, so most of my lot were there, where all the parish graves were. Bring you around this way because it gives you a nice view of the church. St Margaret's Centre does a hell of a lot of good work in the local community though, so, and I'm very partial as well. Weather's turned out nice today. Got a nice sunny day to look at the relatively newly cleaned stained glass. All the stained glass has been cleaned in this church, which is, as I say, one of the changes, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. As I say, I am partial to this church, but you will see why for anyone that hasn't seen it before. I know a few of you have. You may choose to watch, you may choose not to, but I like to record change as it happens, and this one over the last year or two has had quite a bit. It's bell tower all restored and done up, and that's why the you've got a good history information board about the bell ringers, even with pictures in there, so that's nice. This is its bell tower, and where people have their wedding photographs taken, where they come in and out, get married. So, join me on the inside for this one. Hope you're all going to enjoy. Off we go inside. Hello ladies and gents, and here we are inside the church. I have shown this one before. For those of you who have seen it, you'll probably much know what you're getting, but for those who haven't, I've had a lot of new page members since then, so, and there's some changes as well outside, as we've seen, and in here. So this is the Armada font, as it's known. It was brought home by sailors from the Armada who were grateful to have been spared, and donated it as the church to the church as a thanksgiving for their lives being spared. The font cover is much later, but beautiful. In need of a bit of restoration here and there, but they'll have to get funds released for that. Yeah, it really is a beautiful object. This is not the changes, of course, but we will see those in a minute. This is new. Look, this is what I like. You get to see a picture of the man as well. John Murray Haynes, born in 1841, died in 1900. Robert Sewell, born in 1824, moved to Barking in 1861 and 71. He was a miller credited with improving the ringing of bells at Barking and founded the society. He lived at Barking for 20 years before moving to Mitcham. Died in 1903, age 79. So this is fascinating, all this, because it's the local history, of course. Pause to read any of the descriptions. The late Mr. E.A. Davis, Barking. Edward Alfred Davis, born in 1842 in Kent, is credited with the founding of St Margaret Society, with Robert Sewell instrumental in getting the bells refurbished. Local manager of Randall's Maltsters, very active in local charities. Manager of the church school and served on the Urban District Council, died in 1915, aged 73. Here's his memorial. Ringing out the Jubilee. See, I love history like this. Sid Holgate. So you catch real people and the real history. Walter Beard. And that's a nice little piece of history, isn't it? That's one of the changes. Up there, I'll zoom in onto it. Just up there, where that beam is, are medieval paintings that were part of a like a canvas that hung down. The doom painting that prophesied what would happen to you if you were bad in this life, in the next life, basically. Yeah, just to cheer you up. But the church is really looking lovely at the moment. It's got fresh flowers in, probably prepared for a wedding. These, what I'm always saying to you about, are the church warden staffs. And interestingly, with Barking Church, unlike many other churches who only have 2 church wardens, this one has 3. So look. I love these because they're little pieces of history. The other change is that the stained glass has been cleaned recently. These are the paintings that are up on the beams. It gives you a much clearer shot of them. But they were from the time when this church was part of the Abbey. As you've seen the model outside. But this here, I absolutely love this window, it's beautiful. Why are we going blurry? That's better. This church really does host some really gorgeous stained glass. And we'll be ending off lastly with two historical figures associated with the church, one of whom I can find no image of, sadly, but can find information about his life and stuff like that. And the other one, it is an image, so that's stunning. Look at that, it's gorgeous. And there is more stained glass. Over here is the medieval water stoop from when this church once belonged to the nuns. Well, it wasn't originally a parish church as it is now. When Henry VIII had the abbey pulled down, this church really, and the Curfew Gate that we've seen outside and the lost Curfew Gate, were the only bits of it that survived. The rest of it had as a stone quarry and sold stone by stone. You could roll up and buy a cartload of stones to build your property with. So once they'd stripped the lead and all the fine stuff, that's what happened. Another little claim to fame for this one is Captain James Cook and Elizabeth Batts. They married here in Barking, and here is their marriage entry. Bear these in mind, because I'll show you another famous person in a minute. See, I visit this church quite regularly. I try not to show it too often because I don't want you to get bored with the content, but for those that haven't seen it, it's a little treat. Known as the fisherman's or sailor's chapel, this one, because Barking had such a strong connection to that trade, being so near the Thames and with the river nearby. Big eel trade in Barking. Some of my own ancestors, the Maywoods, were involved in that. Oh, look. Shown as a ball. It's not very nice, is it? It's the kind of thing that could hurt someone's feelings. Medieval tomb slab there. Can't think if this is called Eredos or not, this beautifully carved screen, but it is lovely. But before we go in there, while we're quiet, good, they've left it uncovered. Excellent, my favourite one. These are all hand carved and each one is different. I won't take the flowers off to show you, but to show you on this one, which isn't covered, as you can see, each one is different. And here is where the church wardens and church officials sit. Now we're going to be visiting the first of our historical characters in a sec. Sorry, I have to walk on people, I don't like doing that, but can't be helped. Once we look at this stained glass, One of our next historical figures is Elizabeth Fry. Though she was a Quaker, she had links to this church and would often be seen at this church. And she's buried not far from here in the Quakers' burial ground. There'll be a documentary on her soon. I've got footage for it, filmed months and months ago, saved on my phone. Forgot about it, to be honest with you, and came across it the other day. But there's Elizabeth Fry. There is Captain James Cook. And St Ethelburga, for whom the abbey was refounded, because the Vikings burned the first abbey. Then St Erkenwald, who was the Bishop of London, who was Ethelburga's brother, he founded Barking Abbey for her and Chertsey Abbey for himself. St Ethelburga still lies buried and undisturbed in the ruins of the abbey. It is believed, or it is known actually. Yeah. As you can see, the ceiling is very impressive too. The Victorians did quite a bit of work on this one. Our next historical character or figure is Reverend Martinus. He's the first recorded vicar of St Margaret's in the 1300s, early 1300s, and this is an image of him on this that would most likely have been from his grave, that was found buried out in the nuns' burial ground. So it was believed that this stone was buried to save it from the Reformation. It was found in Victorian times and brought into the church. But yeah, he's the first recorded vicar of St Margaret's, Reverend Martin. The organ and choir. Now we should be off for our next bit of stained glass. Which is special. Captain John Bennett. This is his memorial here. He lies buried out in the churchyard. This is just the memorial to him inside the church. Did a lot of good work in the local area. And this is that beautiful stained glass. Mariners of Barking. You can't see all the names in that because the cross is up there, but these are mariners obviously associated with this area. That wasn't too bad, was it? Managed to see most of them. back side of the organ there. This is one of the older surviving tombs here, and it's quite an interesting one. William Pounset, 1553. William Pounset was the last steward of Barking Abbey. When the abbey was pulled down, obviously he was the last man there, but this tomb was repaired at the expense of All Souls College in Oxford, Anno Domini 1784. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It must have been very well thought of. Japan's LA, late of Barking, Esquire. And Justice of the Peace. Which he died the 8th day of March 1553. Could be wrong, but I think that's the reign of Queen Mary, Bloody Mary, so if I am right, then we were back in Catholic country then, so William Pounset would have been back in favour. We've got some more stained glass over there, which is really nice. Just here. Making sure I don't tread on anything. As I said to you, with good reason, the stained glass is really lovely in this one. And here is the memorial to Edward Alfred Davis, one of the bell ringers that we saw. 48 years a bell ringer at this church and 26 years as church warden. And this, Carol said to me, was an apprentice piece, carved obviously by an apprentice to show the level of his skill. And my goodness, what a level of skill. And this was found also out in the older ruins of the old abbey in Victorian times. A lot of the excavations were done here, Victorian times, and later on in our own time as well there was excavations done, and some of the artefacts are still in Valence House Museum. And this man would have been a priest. All in Latin. And this being a Church of England church, you've got the royal arms up there. The monarch being the head of the church. And the last historical figure I want to show you, can I get around this way? Yeah. Is over here. Not this one, but just want to show you this tomb because it is very impressive. So Orlando Humphreys of Jenkins in this parish. And look, here he is. So we've got two last historical figures because I forgot about him, to be honest with you. And here's our last one. Here lies the body of Sir Timothy de Faria, Knight of Ye Order of Christ of Portugal, and servant of Queen Catherine of England. That's the wife of George I. He departed this life ye 15th of January, Anno Domini 1714/15. He married Margaret, ye daughter of Thomas Goddard, late of this parish, Gent. He also lies buried here. Here also lieth buried the body of Margaret, wife of ye above named Sir Timothy de Faria, who departed this life December the 3rd, 1750, aged 81 years. So yeah, that's our last historical character. So he was a servant to Queen Catherine, and was also a member of the Order of Christ of Portugal. So a couple of historical and interesting figures you've seen associated with this one. And to end us off with this lovely shot, hope you've all enjoyed this one. If you've watched it and it's a revisit for you as well, hope you enjoyed. If it's your first time seeing this one, I hope you all enjoy this place as much as I do. Take care all. The Great Barking Abbey, as it once would have been circa 1500, with its outbuildings and surrounding countryside. And over to the top left you can just see St Margaret's Church there, which is one of the pieces that still remains, of course. The Saints of Barking. Right in the centre you've got St Erkenwald, St Ethelburga and St Hildeliff, who holds the abbey in her hands. Reverend Martin, the first recorded vicar of St Margaret's Barking, early 1300s. Sir Orlando Humphreys, interesting man. At one point he owned the manor of Barking, which included the land of Barking Abbey and great swathes around it. He also owned Eastbury Manor House and lived there, which is a location I'll be covering soon enough. And last but definitely not least, Sir Timothy de Faria, Knight, who's turned out to be an interesting man, a covert Catholic when Catholicism in this country was still highly illegal and frowned upon. Until the late 1700s, it was actually illegal to be a Catholic. Sir Timothy was of the Order of Christ of Portugal, a Catholic order. Here's some information about that. Pause to read if you want to. And he also served a notorious Catholic queen, Catherine of Braganza. She was actually the wife of King Charles II, not King George I. That was my mistake. But she was a notorious Catholic and disliked for it as well. So it's interesting to think that our man, Sir Timothy, is a covert Catholic and lies in a Church of England church. But where else would the poor man have been buried when Catholicism was illegal? Anyway, ladies and gents, that's our little faces from the past. Hope you all enjoyed Barking Church as much